Welcome back to episode number 5 of the No Names Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Ways, and today we are talking with my boy, Scott Simmons, creative entrepreneur. And recently I found out that you are also a 217 guy, just like me. And for those who don't know what the 217 is, it is a stretch of cornfields from Indiana to Iowa. They're just center part of Illinois. So pretty cool seeing, a central Illinois guy on my end, but you're all the way down in Austin, which is sick.
Yeah. It's funny how the world works, right? Where I don't know how we got each other's number, but either you texted me or I texted you, and you're like, "Wait a minute, hang on, 217, I know that number." Yeah, so the best way I describe it is exactly what you said, just a bunch of farm towns.
Yeah, and it's funny enough that the junior college that's in Quincy is actually the first college that offered me to play baseball, which is nuts.
Hold on, Quincy University, QU?
No.
John Wood.
What is it? John Wood?
John
Yeah,
Wood.
no.
Okay,
I was JUCO. I was not D2.
Yeah. I got you.
We'll keep that.
Both
We'll
cool
keep that
schools,
straight.
man.
I was not that good. The big thing that I always start these episodes with, and it's a little different because this was our first stab at doing one on, via Zoom, FaceTime, whatever. Usually when I'm with whoever I'm interviewing, we get the same drink and I drink whatever they have, and then I try it, rate it, whatever. But Today we're just sipping on a little black coffee. I think I told you it's like my third cup, so I'm kind of wired right now.
Dude, what I'm curious because you like to try. You said you want to try it. What kind of coffee do you drink? Like, do you a Keurig, espresso? What do you have?
No, I'm just a Starbucks like Pike Place, little ground coffee in the morning.
God, you're gonna hate
really
me.
bad.
That coffee.
I'm a basic.
That coffee
I'm so
is
basic.
Garbage.
Okay. I mean, it's better than other ones, but there are some. I'm trying to think. Like, we got some good coffee shops around here, but their bags are like twice the price.
Oh, of course, yeah, sure. We have. Do you know what HEB is? The grocery chain.
Yeah.
Okay, so HEB sells a name brand HEB coffee. It's called San Antonio Blend. It's the only coffee we get, and we have to buy it in the beans because it tastes better when you grind it first. I wish you could try this because if you're ever in Austin, we'll do it because this is the best coffee I've ever had, and you can make it at home.
Man, okay. Are you straight black or like you put cream in it? What do we do?
I do a cream for the first cup, and then if I do 2 or 3 cups after that, it's black. I don't know why I do it that way, but I do it that way.
Hey, just got to start it off with a little bit of flavor,
Something,
right? Then after that, it's just kind of gone.
Yeah.
Okay, so did the coffee? I'm rocking my Pike's Place. We're having a good day. Basically, what I love starting these with is finding out, where your creative spark or your start came from in terms of you as a creative overall. Because you do photo, video, and there could have been other things that really led you down this path of creativity, or it might have happened later in life that you could have been 21 and you for some reason just picked up a camera and you liked it.
Yeah. Well, I would say it started pretty early. So in the beginning when I was younger, my dad's a hella sports guy, and so it's like the NFL, the NBA, it's always on in the house. I was naturally good enough at sports, but I just didn't really love it like most people do. Like there's some diehard. We were just talking about some of our buddies and like Rob, and I don't know. Are you a sports guy yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like my joke is always I'm the worst sports fan ever because I would know nothing about it. So my point there is I learned to like search for what I was enjoying when I was probably 14 or 15, and it was music. And that led me to more of the creative realm. So not in this office anymore, but outside of it, there's a guitar that I've had since I was 16 that I keep as a decorative element in the office now at this point. But basically guitar, piano, drums, I played saxophone. Like I experimented with music. So that was a lot of fun, and that kind of thing created the spark. And then I got into skateboarding, as I'm sure many of us do. And my cousin was really good, and I picked up a VHS little cam, like a handheld cam, and we would go film like old school skate Bam Margera videos. So, I mean, that's kind of where it all started. Then life got a little more like real and serious, so I had to grow up, get a job, and that kind of stuff, and it faded away. And then it really rekindled back here in Austin when I moved here and decided to leave my corporate job when I picked up a camera and started shooting again. And I was like, wow, this is the same feeling I got with music, but I never really knew, how to look for that, I guess. And so camera photo, video, all of it helped me tell more story and help me attach emotion because I really like doing that. And that's what music did for me in the beginning. So that's kind of how it evolved.
Yeah, no, and honestly, that's partially similar to mine. Like, I loved music growing up, but I knew I couldn't sing. And I learned how to play the drums. Like, I taught myself the set, but it wasn't that good. I didn't have my own, but I always wanted to be a part of a band.
Mm-hmm.
But now the big thing for me is like, what I do outside of Ghost is I shoot concerts. That's pretty much the only clientele that I'm taking on right now.
Yeah.
And I just love it because that's the only way that I saw that I could get into anything creative necessarily.
Yeah.
When it came to music.
Yeah.
So
It's the way your concert photography is sick, by the way. It's
appreciate
I
that.
love
Thank
it,
you.
dude. There's a couple, what's your music go to? If you like your style, your genre.
It's tough, man. I love alternative indie, or like pop is usually like my kind of, but it's like pop in that alternative space, or usually like poppy EDM.
Yeah.
Those are kind of like my two main categories.
I grew up listening to like screamo and shit. You know what I mean? And so
I was a punk rock kid.
Yeah, dude, it was fun. I was in two bands in high school. One was like a Fall Out Boy alternative, and then the other one was like, I don't know what you would call it. If A Day to Remember wasn't as mainstream now, you know what I mean?
Oh, gotcha.
But I was watching some of your content, and you inspired me to like try to do concert photography because I've never done it before. And we had a local band, or not a local band, a small like screamo middle ground alternative band come into Austin. There's probably 100 people at their show, but I DM'd them on Instagram and they responded and let me take photos of their concert. And that was just really fun to do, and it was a cool experience. So I can imagine a larger concert's a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. And honestly, it's like one of the big things that I always say when it comes to like, now I'm starting to shoot a lot bigger shows. And the big thing that I always tell myself, and I try to respond, and I said it in my last episode, was send the fucking email, because
yeah, dude,
it's so much more than sending an email. Than it's more of you putting yourself in the place or in a position that you could succeed, because if you don't even try, you never have that opportunity for success.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I know that's some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, so we can get into that in a minute. But yeah, I just wanted to say that it's cool that the music blend was there, and then when I got to shoot that that little show, it felt like synergistically everything aligned. It was really cool.
Yeah, man, I love it. I honestly could talk the entire time about that. But so it's diving back into it. I really want to get kind of your timeline, like your journey. You touched on the music and how that was your kind of creative spark. Like, was college a thing? Were you straight to work out of high school? Like what was kind of your journey to almost where you are now?
So to make a long story short, I went to school in Iowa State. And I went to school for finance. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so I picked a business degree, and I felt like every other business degree outside of finance was kind of a joke. Sorry if anybody has a regular marketing degree. But
I have an integrated marketing degree.
Yeah. So we had like business administration, business management, marketing. And I thought those are all, I don't need to learn that from somebody else. So I thought finance would be interesting because I wanted to get into stocks. And so my goal was to become a stockbroker, actually, on the exchange. And we had a couple of people from a couple of different, kids who had graduated, guys who had graduated long term, come in and speak, and they mentioned basically if you aren't in love with money and you aren't obsessed with money, I'm sure everybody has different views on this, but basically their point was don't go into this because you're going to be drowning in work and you're going to be working all the time. And coincidentally, now I work all the time, but I'm not upset about it. You know what I mean? So anyway, from there, I didn't know what I was doing, so I went to a counselor for the first time my senior year before basically you were graduating, like a month out, and they found an internship where I could do in Kansas. It was with an airplane company called Textron Aviation, and they sell and manufacture Cessna and Beechcraft airplanes. Basically, I did that for a year in Kansas, and then I got promoted to sales. So I sold private jets for Cessna and Beechcraft. The range of money, I always like to say, because it's kind of a fun number to say, is between $4.5 and $25 million airplanes. That was really cool, and that was quite the experience. I grew up with a dad who was in sales, and again, to make a long story short here, basically I started to learn and understand the frustrations he had with corporate sales job. And so I started to think, is this what I want my life to be? The same as what I grew up with. And not to say it was bad or anything, but it's just not the trajectory that felt like me. And that's kind of where that blend of, okay, the music felt like me, but now how are we going to get into creative stuff? So I had a pretty good year my first year in sales. I had a couple commission checks coming to pop off, and I found that as an opportunity to bounce. So we had some savings in the bank. My now fiance, Savannah, she was working a job at Ulta Beauty, just like a basic job, so we didn't have a lot of money coming in. But we just said, okay, let's give it a shot. We'll figure it out. And I bought a Panasonic G85, if you remember that camera.
Yeah.
And I liked it because of the stabilization. And I thought, man, this is probably a pretty easy camera to use, and it was cheap. And it could shoot 4K, and all the YouTube videos looked really good. So got that, just shot a couple random workout videos with some guys I met, locally here in Austin at this point because I had moved. And I got a few DMs and people asking how much I charged. And as the story goes, many people say, I didn't know, so I said $100. Then I said $200, $300, and I kind of just kept going up. Eventually, I got to the point where, similar to what you're saying, send the email, I said to myself, I need to find a way to make a little more recurring money. So I pitched a lady on marketing that I thought I knew because of social media and sold like a $3,000 a month, 6-month contract for making her content, helping her social, helping her website stuff, and all this. That evolved into her leaving after 2 months because what am I going to do? You know what I mean? I can't hold a contract, someone to a contract as a new freelancer. It doesn't even matter. But Savannah ended up getting into fitness content, and she got picked up by Raw Nutrition and Revive MD. And so the owner, Dom, knew I was making her content. He ended up DMing me or something or emailing me, basically knew we were going to the Olympia. And at this point in time, I was helping another guy build his fitness coaching business with content and marketing, his podcast. And I did 100 episodes of a podcast with him and learned that realm and stuff. So I've been learning a lot. This is a fast version of the story. There's a lot I could go into. We only have so much time, right? But basically, we go to Florida. The first year of the Olympia is in Florida. Dom very graciously put us up in his house and, said, come stay with me for the week. I'll show you Revive. We'll hang out. We'll go do stuff, and we'll talk about everything. He ended up offering me a job. At that time, he was just building Revive, and Raw had just started. This is before the C-Bum era, before anybody. I was probably the second or third employee there. I remember he said he was working with an agency that he was paying out the ass. He didn't like the work they did anyway, and he wanted somebody in-house and start to build that in-house team. So he said, I'll give you the job if you want it, but you got to move here. So long conversations, long nights, and we decided, okay, let's do it. So 2 months later, I moved to Florida, and that's what brought us into the Raw and Revive side, which we can get into. And then I stayed there for 2 years, and now we're back here in Austin after that, starting my own clothing brand, protein cookie business, helping my fiance with her app and her fitness brand and making content for us as well.
Yeah. So, and I think that part of the story too, you're seeing, I don't know, but you're seeing more companies, especially in the fitness realm, bring their creative in-house.
Oh yeah.
Unless you're just out there white labeling and, the brand isn't as big of a deal to you, everyone is bringing their stuff in-house. You're looking, other companies are bringing on people who were influencers for them or are still, on their ambassador list, but they're bringing them in-house and whatnot. So I think that versus, how's that difference between, creating for Savannah, but also then creating for the brand itself? How did that content look for you? Because, Savannah might have a certain look, but, Raw Revive, they might have a certain look. For me, Ghost, I have a certain look on my photography personally, but Ghost has a certain look. So it's not always edited to my taste. It's edited to the brand. Yeah.
I would say I was very fortunate because I don't know when you walked into Ghost and when you started and where they were at in their company's life cycle. But in Raw, it was such a baby. Even Revive was still young and new. And Dom had already didn't really enjoy the brand styling that the agency worked up. And so he was asking me to just do whatever I want, basically. Whatever I felt like was the brand, he said, do that. And to any other owners of companies, even myself now owning a company, I have to keep that in the back of my head because that really helped me feel confident and me feel attached to the brand, which allowed me to create more and do more and experiment more. And it gave me a lot more freedom as a creative. I didn't feel like I was in a box. And so I attest a lot of what I've learned at Raw and where Raw is creatively now, even as you can, I don't know if you paid attention to it lately, but you've seen it transition because now it looks like Calvin. because Calvin is now the creative director over there. And now he's letting Calvin run their thing and their course, which I honestly think that's really respectable. So I agree with you when you know, in your point of like companies are doing that. I think companies should do more of that. I got a buddy who owns a piece of Cloud Power. I don't know if you know who that is, but another supplement company, actually pretty decently sized, surprisingly, but I didn't even know who they were. But he's a 3D rendering graphic designer. He helped some guys at Anaka Power some shit. And he kills it, dude. He's amazing. He could make movies. Like his shit looks insane. And they gave him equity.
Wait, like all the like the video stuff, not just like the rendering of like a tub or something. Like
he makes
they had the gorillas and everything like that.
Yeah, he made that.
Okay, sick.
This
yeah,
like one
I
dude,
recognize that.
This one dude made all that, which he's crazy. He could make, like I said, he could make movies. His name is Jared. He's a boss. But they gave him a piece of the company because they knew that would help them. So that kind of like story or line around, you know, creators coming into businesses, I think it's the right thing to do now. I think it's smart. I mean, you can see it with bigger companies or bigger people like Mr. Beast, MKBHD, and those guys too.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really cool to see that transition happening because historically, like for, you know, bigger companies and everything, it's always to outsource. And I mean, there gets to a point where like you have to have, you know, like you get to the level of like Coca-Cola or PepsiCo, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's just a different ballgame. But you know, our world respectively, like I think the influencer side is where these companies are really speaking to their audience. So that's like bringing that person in and really having them help the business understand of like the function of not only them as a, you know, an influencer in the space, but also them like helping direct brand direction essentially of how to better market to consumers.
Yeah, I mean, well, look at Chris Seabum. I mean, they brought Chris in as an athlete in the beginning, but they gave him ownership and said, "What do you think we should do?" You know, and although Chris is a professional bodybuilder in the top of his league, he still understands branding and marketing because he's still using social media as a platform. So that kind of stuff is very cool.
Yeah, it's sick. And I think that kind of goes into like the next topic that I kind of want to cover for you is, as you mentioned, you've got your hand in a lot of different projects, brands, everything. So what do you think, like you have all these different things and then you're also trying to build your personal brand. So like, how do you feel, or how do you think like building a community for separate avenues of your life, like with all these different brands, like what do you think is the biggest differentiator between creating for a brand and creating for personal branding?
I think that it's a good question because you would think that they should be different, but I think they should be the same. So, and my opinion on that will probably change down the road depending on where Uphill goes. But for example, Uphill, the clothing brand, that is Jason and I. You know, that's the community. That's who it is. Anybody who connects with us is connected with the brand. That's it. There's no separating the two. Even all of my email flows and ads and marketing and that kind of stuff references us specifically. We don't treat it like, hey, this is Ghost, you know, like example. It would be like if Dan and Ryan were writing the emails themselves to customers, basically. That's kind of how we're treating it now. So there's a lot more of a personal connection in the beginning. I'd like to keep that down the road. There's a couple other companies like Kill Crew and that kind of stuff. Those guys do that too, which I've drawn inspiration from them when it comes to the way they market their brand. But you also play the game of like the niche thing too. So like a lot of people in the creative space who know me might not be in streetwear or like fitness, clothing, that kind of stuff as well. So I think you can blend the two, but I do think importance of community is like find the group that you want to be attached to and find the ones you really want to help and the problems you want to solve for those people. That's whoever you should follow, and that's who you should connect with, and that's the community you should build. Does that answer the question?
Definitely. Yeah. Because I think too, if you like look back, because Ghost is now like 7.5 years old.
Yeah.
And if you look back, Dan and Ryan were in every YouTube episode. They were doing, I mean, on the Snapchat days, they were doing, and that's where I think you get that when you're a baby of a company, like a brand new company, you being at the forefront of that, like Ghost was the only real company doing vlogs like this. They were everything. So like seeing the transition now is like the company's exploded. It's with like we've got our hand in so many different things, but you see the maturing process of the company, right? Like Dan and Ryan, like they might not be in everything, but their roots are still there.
Yeah,
like
of course.
they might be in every other episode or whatever it is, but like
I mean, you can
the
still
core
see
audience
it.
is still there.
You can still see it in the product. I totally can. From back when they were doing what was the series called? Building the Brand, right?
Yeah. Yep. So still building the brand.
Do you guys still run that series?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're off to like every other week.
Okay.
Is the uploading.
But even like the Chicago street lifestyle is still in the brand, and that's who those guys were in the beginning. So it's cool to see that maintained, and that's what I think is important now, especially to build a community. I mean, to use Ghost as a reference of being a mega company now at this point, that holding true to that value and that standard is what kept that brand going. Similar to the Alpha Elite, with Christian, similar to the Inaka guys with Jolly. I mean, you look at Max with tuning, with Sour Strips. All of those people are in front of the camera all the time. So that is something to consider when building a brand.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things is people don't buy what you're doing, they buy why you're doing it. So like people will buy into you rather than the brand. And if they buy into you, they're going to be even more like if you get to a numbers point, you're going to convert more, but it's like people are going to buy into you as a person rather than just the brand itself. They would rather rock something because of you.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, dude, that's the big thing that I think that, a lot of companies, if they get it right, you have that diehard audience. Like until, the company does whatever. Like that core audience that is from day one, or they go back and watch like every YouTube video, that's where your true audience is. And those are the people that are really going to like stay true to the brand, no matter how big your company gets, right?
Yeah. I think it's really important.
Or you as a person.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and it's something I learned in the last I've always known it, but I've never implemented it. But in the last 6 months or so is really honing in on asking yourself, what are the problems I'm trying to solve, and who is it solving for? So the content that I've been making recently on Instagram, and hopefully as I keep myself a little more accountable to YouTube, will be in YouTube as well, is like I'm speaking to a specific person now. And I understood the concept of that, but I never did it myself and tried it, and it clearly works. I mean, it sounds silly to say that, duh, but I'm having more conversations with creatives as well as people who are trying to build whether their own personal brand or a brand themselves. And the same things I was going through in the beginning, they're going through now. So it's very cool to really hone in and understand all you have to do is, let's say in real estate, what are the problems they have? What are the things they need help with? And just answer those things, or at least have conversations around them.
Yeah, I think the thing, even I run into this still because my YouTube journey is still like very early on.
Yeah.
But I did a solo episode for episode 4, and I felt like I was still just trying to hit points rather than having someone like if I could literally just have my girlfriend sit behind the camera and have a one-way conversation with her, I feel like it would come out so much better. And I think that's, a wall that a lot of people creatively have to break down because you're trying to like speak eloquently or like, articulate on certain points. But what people really buy into is just like, I feel like the raw like nature of just a conversation. And I feel like they're going to feel like they're actually a part of it rather than you just speaking to them.
What's helped me a lot with that is writing. So I run a newsletter. I don't know if you're on that or not, but
I will be now.
It's super small. I just hit like 120 people signed up. It's hella small, but I like the build in public concept. I don't know if you've heard of that, but on Twitter it's very common where people are like sharing all the stuff they learn. I'm doing that with my newsletter. So I'm sharing how much money I'm making, not specifically with the brands, but as a creative. I probably won't ever divulge how much the brand is doing and that kind of stuff. That's just like, I feel like that's just not something boundary we need to cross. But the AdSense, the ad revenue I make, digital sales, and then what I'm doing to get that and do that, as well as the effort I'm putting in and the amount of whether it's followers, saves, engagement, that kind of stuff. I'm tracking that now, and I'm publicly providing that in that newsletter. And I've noticed that writing has helped me communicate better. And, having a space where I can just kind of rant and just bullshit whatever I want. So when you're doing those podcasts in those situations, I think that maybe writing would help. I would say anybody who starts writing, it's a really interesting way to train your brain and help your brain understand how to communicate better.
Yeah, so like I guess when you're scripting out a YouTube video or anything like that, are you writing a full script of like what that narration is going to be, or are you? Because I need to do look into your videos a little bit more too. Is everyone's got a flow, right? And for me, I feel like if I have like certain points I want to hit, and I think of like a really good sentence, but then that sentence comes off as so scripted that it's just painful. Like I don't even want to use it at that point. Like I would rather just do 3 takes and take the most like organic one.
Yeah, I have done everything from winging it to using a teleprompter on the camera. And I can tell when I use a teleprompter. And so when I do that, I don't know if anybody else can. I think one of my buddies in one of our like creative circles, he said he could tell a little bit that I was almost too perfect in how I communicated the language. So I started to write the way I talk, and that helps. But to answer the question, I do script it out. I don't want to call it a framework because I don't always use it, but I basically have a framework that I try to stick with. That's like, what are the main things? I need to send you I don't know if you have my Notion thing or not, but I need to send that to you because it basically says, what's the goal you're trying to achieve? And then answer that question. Start there first. Everything maps to that. That's all. And then after that, what are the 3 main points that you want to cover here? And then I'll script it out, but I won't try to box myself in. So like what you said, if you have a good thing you want to say, just let it rip and let it ride and find out later. I feel like nobody's going to notice. And I think we're also us as creatives are very critical of what we do. And we think if we don't say it this way, it's going to come off differently. And I don't think that's ever true.
Yeah, dude, and you've touched on it too. I think, having that group of people that are one, pushing you to do more, but 2, also they will help you, but they will also critique you in ways that build you up.
Yeah.
Like they might just notice little things because let's say Johnny's the bro. He's crushing social right now. So for the longest time when I was starting to just do any kind of reels or anything, I would legit just send him shit. Like I'm sending him every draft and he's like, oh, I would do this. And now I'm getting to a point where it's like, unless I'm really unsure of something, I'm just going to rip it.
Yeah.
And I think it was for the longest time me just getting in my own way. And I think a lot of creatives do that because we get nervous, whether it be like imposter syndrome or any of those things. Like we will have one foot holding us back half the time.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that because how old are you?
27.
Okay.
I had to think about it.
Which you're 31. I just turned 31 this past October.
Dude, you could have said 24.
And my Savannah makes me take care of my skin and all my shit to make me look younger because she's like, I'm not going to have some old geezer as a husband. But I've had that thought since I was 18, or not 18, let's say 20 something, and in college wanting to start a YouTube channel. And I had a fitness account, I had all kinds of shit, and all my close homies and the guys, they weren't on social, they were just friends I had in college that I grew up with basically in high school. They all thought I was like silly and dumb for doing that. And they're all good people. There's nothing wrong with them, or I'm not speaking poorly about them at all, but they didn't understand that I was interested in that, I guess, maybe. And that held me back all the time. And I'm so annoyed at myself that I just didn't, like what you just said, let it rip. I have a video that I made. I made an Instagram reel about this, but about basically just starting that. I have a YouTube video I started back in 2019. So I started my YouTube channel. It was like a channel trailer. And I didn't publish it because I didn't think I could commit to the video frequency I wanted to commit to. I was a little nervous on how I was approaching it. And I look back at it, and yeah, it might have been a little cheesy and a little corny, but I think back to if I kept putting in the reps, even if it was one video a month, where would I be today? And how good would I be at that today? I might be at Johnny's level. I might be beyond Johnny's level. I might not be there yet, but I might feel better about what I produce. And ultimately, the goal is to just produce. And I got stuck in consuming way too much shit and comparing myself to that. And it's just so real. You can get stuck in that loop for so long. I mean, I'm talking years.
Yeah, trust me, been there. Still kind of there half the time. Like it really is, I think, so hard for creatives. Like comparing yourself is always going to be tough, right? Because we live in an age where there's always going to be someone better. there's always going to be someone that you're like, oh, their stuff is better than mine. That's just how it is. And I think the hardest thing sometimes is telling yourself you have to compare your, not to compare yourself to other people, but compare yourself to who you were yesterday, and always getting, that 1% better.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we like to confirm or affirm our confirmation bias. So we look for content that is better than the content we produce, thinking we can make that content, knowing we can make that content. But then when we try and realize how hard it is to make that level of content that we want to make. So that, like in the beginning, I wanted to be the Peter McKinnon style. Everybody, that's the guy,
yeah.
right? And I was like, this guy, I can make this kind of fucking video. I can do that. I started doing it, and it got hard. And I was like, why is this so hard? Why can't I do this? And I just didn't even think about the amount of reps and effort in the inputs he put in. That's what I like to focus on a lot right now is just what inputs are you doing? Who gives a shit about the output? So the inputs are what's important, whether it's creating content, trying a new marketing funnel for a business, making cold calls to GNC to try to get the cookies in GNC, try a website, landing page, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like as long as you have the inputs and you keep going, that's the only way to do it. And I recognize that a little too late, but I also try not to harp on it. If you're never too late. It's just when you want to start.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. And I think one thing that you've continued to touch on, and we have as like a consistent piece throughout this conversation, is surrounding yourself with like-minded people, right? Yeah. So how big of a role do these groups, or like these, your core group that is really holding you to that? How important is that to your growth, but also to like, rising tide raises all ships, right? So like if one person in the group of 5 or whatever is struggling or they're not on their shit, the group is going to call them out collectively. But it's also, they're going to be the first ones to hype you up when that post or whatever goes out, right? Mm-hmm. So what's the importance to you, and like how crucial of a role has that played in your development?
I mean, I would say the easy answer is it's one of the most important things anybody can do, regardless of where category, niche, group you're in, whatever you're trying to do with your business, life, creativity, whatever it is. But basically, for me, it's been so pivotal. We touched on Johnny, which you've had him on already before. And Johnny, I'm in the circle with Johnny, Rob, Big E, streamer, Sooner. He's a kind of more behind the scenes guy. And all those guys are really good in their own respective ways. And I've generated a little bit more of a connection with Johnny. I think that's just because of the Raw and Ghost relationship that, Dom's really good friends with Ryan and Dan. And so, I think just as a byproduct, Johnny and I kind of navigated towards each other naturally. But that dude will call me out on anything, and it makes me really kind of angry in the sense of, well, I tried really hard on this. Why it's not bad, but I tried really hard on this. Why are you giving me a hard time? And it's not coming from that lens. It's more so giving the lens of, dude, you can do this, but you got to step it up. And I never had that kind of feedback before, and that's helped a lot. So that whole crew, that whole circle of people, I mean, even you and I go back and forth on Instagram every now and then, now a little more, which I really appreciate, on trying to support and help each other grow. So I think that's that along with the eye-opener that, oh, these guys are just normal dudes. Like, just because you have 100,000 YouTube subs or 100,000 Instagram followers or whatever, they're just normal people. And they're just going through the same things, going through some of the similar struggles. They have off days, and recognizing that is the same as me today as a small creator, that helped me realize, oh, so anybody can do this.
Yeah, dude. And I think too, I never really had like a group like that where I felt, they were in the same headspace of like creativity, like what I wanted to do. And you probably know this too, coming from a small town in Central Illinois, no one makes videos like that. I was doing it when I was in high school, and we were just messing around with a GoPro. Yeah. And we thought that was cool, but at the time that wasn't like a viable thing, right? Like that wasn't a career path that had been created.
If I wanted to make a vlog, dude, you'd be laughed at.
Oh my God. You're ostracized. Yeah. Like it's just so weird. But then like you look at it now, and I don't remember what podcast or where I heard this, but it was one of the top jobs that kids want to do now is be a creator, like an influencer. I hate that
I
that's
know.
the route is the influencer route. I would rather, you're trying to help people. I always say send the elevator back down. You're trying to help people that might be, a year progress wise behind you, or someone who is legit just starting out. So it's always, you're trying to bring everyone up, right?
Yeah.
Because that raises everyone's level of creativity.
Your point to this, and I've seen that statistic before that kids, the job they want to do is a creator, influencer, whatever. What I find really important now, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, is it's the premise of why I got into Uphill with Jason, Chunky Fit with Angel, my partner there, with Savannah's content, why I'm building my own digital products is those kinds of creators are subjective to specifically the brands that they work with. And I've talked to a few of the guys, even like Johnny and Rob, about this. You don't know where your next paycheck is coming from or when it's coming from. You could have there are guys like who have 1 million on TikTok, right? And they might get paid $15K to do a post, which is crazy. Somebody would be like, oh my God, yes, sign me up. But what if you get that once a year? You have no predictability. And then you don't know where anything is going for. You don't know why you're even making content. You're going to get discouraged. So I'm a big proponent of creators have probably the most skill sets in this world now than ever. And if you wanted to spin up a website tomorrow, you could. It's not that hard. If you wanted to start a Shopify and get into marketing flows, you could. If you want to start a clothing brand, it's really not that hard. Just make it happen. And then the hard part is about creating the culture and the community that we talked about earlier and getting people to buy into that. That's the challenging part. But if you're already making content and you already have that, then I don't think people should be subjective to the brands that they have to work with. I think they should consider making the brand themselves. That's a huge reason why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. And I'm not interested necessarily to be like the content creator who, gets a deal with Sony or whatever. Like, that'd be cool. But if I can help build a brand or make a brand or help somebody else build a brand and then create a sustainable lifestyle, and if they want to sell it down the road too and make some money off the top from that and get a bag that way, that's way cooler and way more rewarding in my opinion.
Yeah, I think like being in the trenches, and it's honestly like when because my jobs previously, I only know startup life.
Yep.
In terms of like an actual company and everything. So coming into Ghost, I mean, I was like number 20 in Chicago. I think like at that point, like we had 20 employees when I started in terms of like HQ. And it was so much like Ghost was everything. And it was so cool to like see the buy-in from there. But then you see behind the scenes and you see the reason why Dan and Ryan did this was because they were building the brand that they wish existed. Mm-hmm. And so they saw this gap in the market, and they're coming from their backgrounds, everything, but they just knew that they needed to create something for them because that community was there and they knew it. And they really they took that and ran with it. And it's not to say it didn't come with struggles, but it was cool to see truly why at the heart of the brand, why they created it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that's a similar concept of what I want to do with the things the brands I have now and the brands I want to continue to start in the future. This is going to sound dumb, and a lot of anybody listening to this who has seen this video, there's a video of Alex Hormozy dumping water into glasses, and basically the point is there's like 6 cups on the table, and only one cup could be completely full, otherwise you're half-assing the rest of your cups. And I hit up I don't want to call him a guru or whatever. I hit up a guy on Twitter because I'm using Twitter as a learning lesson. And he basically, I said, I have 2 brands and I'm trying to build this YouTube channel and yada, yada, yada. Just from someone like you, what do you think? And he basically said, well, pick one and don't do anything else. And I thought I hate that advice. Why can't I do everything? And yes, you're going to run yourself thin, but I think that it's a challenge that I personally want to take on, to show other people who are interested like me, like, oh, you can make content, you can have a clothing brand, you can fuck around with this other thing, and you can help your fiance or your girlfriend or your friends or whatever make content too and do all this stuff and still make it all work. You can. But I'm at the point now where it's like sink or swim, make it happen. And I think that if you take that approach, you can get a lot done. And I think that that's, coming back to the way people attach themselves to certain things like Dan and Ryan did for Ghost and building that community. I think that if you start doing that, people really attract to that.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I think like as you were talking, I was thinking, okay, you're creating all the time, right? And for me as a creative, like I'm doing photography 9 to 5 for Ghost, but then I come home and there are a lot of days where the last thing I want to do is set up the camera, get the lights going, everything. And when you're creating all day, the last thing you want to do sometimes is create more. But, you know, guys like Johnny, guys like you, it's like that kick in the ass at the end of the day. It's like, all right, I got to set my shit up because I know the level that I want to be at and the level I can be at, it requires this amount of discipline, right? So like, what do you think I don't know how often you run into that, or what do you think the biggest thing is to like get you going? Like if you're tapped out for the day, but you know, you made that contract with yourself that you're going to do one more thing.
That's always really hard because I also believe in a little bit that if you need to take a break, you should take a break. And it's not going to derail you or anything. I mean, if you want to take a week or two off of posting to get your mind right and get your shit together and kind of focus on planning your ideas and scripting the things you want and getting yourself set up, that's okay. As long as you come back to the thing you're trying to do. But yeah, dude, it sucks. It's hard. It's very hard. I mean, I create a little less because I'm sitting here in front of Shopify and looking at marketing things and checking out Google Analytics and trying to run these Facebook ads and do these funnels. So even after that, I'm like, I'm capped, dude. I do not want to sit in front of the camera. I don't even have an idea right now. So the biggest thing that's helped me is creating systems and those input goals I talked about earlier. So basically what I'm going to try to do in 2024 is I want to post X times a week. And if it's good or not, you got to do it. But I need to set a time to sit down and write. And so I'm going to set 1 or 2 times a week to write and not make any content. Because what I think a lot of people do is they think of a video, they have to make it. And that works for some people. I know some guys who are killing it who are like, video, boom. And then I know some other guys who are very systemized. I don't know if you know who Kofi Yaboa is, but Kofi's a fucking crazy. He's on a train, dude. And I think that dude just sits down, makes a big note list, and just picks a day and rips videos. Back and back to back to back to back to back. If you treat it like a job, it becomes the fun job, you know? And not every job is fun all the time. We all know that. But I don't really like the narrative of, you know, you'll never work a day in your life if you love what you do. That's totally not fucking true. I don't believe a single person, I don't care who you are, I don't believe that for a second. You might love 90% of it. But damn, if you're doing cold calls like I was on what is today? Friday. At the end of the day on Friday to GNCs because you were trying to get your cookies figured out, whatever. That's not exciting. But the plan down the road is what makes that exciting. You have to go through some of that shitty stuff. And some of the feelings that you go through when you sit down and you don't want to make that video, you just have to treat it like, this is what I told myself I was going to do. I have it on my system. I have my accountability tracker, and I got to do it. And if it sucks, and I don't want to post it, that's okay, but at least I did it. I put a rep in, and I did it.
Yeah, I think maybe it was Kobe. I might be confusing this, but like there was one off season where it was Kobe or some guy in the NBA, and he was saying this is the plan. Signed a contract with himself, and he executed on that and came back and just smoked everybody the following year. And that's the same, like the transition for me from athlete, I played a year of college baseball and I had everything planned out for me because that's what the coaches did. Mm-hmm. They told you what to do. And then you go into, okay, the fitness thing, and you're going from so systematically planned out to, all right, figure it out. And you're just on your own.
Yeah.
And I think like, I loved the competitive nature and I loved the structure and everything like that. And then like now it's just trying to figure out how I bring that back into my life, but in a different realm. Like respectively, it's going into different avenues of output, essentially.
Yeah. This is something that stuck with me for a long time. Do you know who Roberto Blake is? I'm sure you do.
I don't think so.
You don't?
Maybe. I might recognize stuff, but
he's like the YouTuber, the OG YouTuber who's teaching YouTubers how to be YouTubers. But he's at Vid Summit. He's a big deal. And he and I connected on Twitter briefly, and I asked him, or he asked a question, and I responded, and he responded to my response in his tweets. And he basically told me, he said, if you had a job and around this topic. Like, how do you stay accountable? How do you keep yourself going and that kind of stuff? And he said, if you had a job and you walked into the office and you had a task list to do and your boss said, do this by the end of the day, and you did nothing, do you think you'd still have that job? And the answer is no.
Getting canned.
You'd be fired. He goes, so why the fuck are you not treating yourself that way? That hit me so hard. I was like, oh my God, dude, he's right. I would fire myself. Why am I doing this? And that's a hard pill to swallow. And I actually want to point out, I'm name dropping all these people back to your community point. I might not be in a text group with Kofi or Roberto or any of these people I'm referencing, but I'm still consuming this content and absorbing this information as if they are my homies trying to tell me something and using that as an opportunity to learn. And so I think if you look at it that way and you say, I'm going to take what these people teach me, and even if it's a lesson I don't want to accept, I have to try. And when Roberto said that, I was like, this is the kick in the ass. I needed to push it. And so, like, again, if you're not treating it like a job, would you? If you are treating this like, if you want this to be your job and you want to be a professional, would you fire yourself? And if the answer is yes, then you got to change something.
Damn, dropping bombs. I love it, dude.
I mean, it's totally true though. You feel
it
it.
is.
Look
It
at
is.
Mr. Beast.
And
Mr. Beast literally lives this shit. If you really research him, it's crazy how much he treats this like work.
it's insane, dude.
But he's still having fun.
How much he actually puts back in, as opposed to just taking it out.
Yeah, totally.
It's wild.
But I mean,
So I
everybody
guess,
does that.
dude. And the last thing that I always, kind of close this with is we've covered a lot of topics, and I feel like basically, if you were going to give like the too long didn't read TLDR, like it is, what advice it can be a few things. What advice would you give either to your younger self or to someone who, in the name of the No Names podcast, is like trying to build a name for themselves, and that could be on personal branding, like a company, whatever they're trying to do. What are some of the pieces of advice, like in short, that you would give to this person?
I would say number one is develop some kind of system that allows you, I'm a huge systems guy, develop some kind of system that allows you to work on the things you want. Most people don't have the luxury that I would consider I have. I don't make a ton of money because I reinvest everything. A lot of people like you and a lot of friends of mine have full-time jobs and have to come home and do their creative stuff. Some people have their own freelance, but if you systemize everything, so 9 to 5 is my work hours, take a break, 6 to 8 is my writing on Monday, and so forth. Like, systemize it out. Monday I do this, Tuesday I do this, Wednesday I do this. I have the freedom and flexibility of doing it every day, but that's also challenging. So and if I'm not systemizing it, I'm going to get lost. The second thing is that community circle, whether you have one that it's in a text group or not, create a group of creators that you want to learn from and consume their content. That's the next thing. Whether you're either talking to them through DMs, through text messages, or just watching their Twitter feed like I do with other guys. That's another one. Consume things you want to learn from and educate yourself. The last thing, arguably the most important, is when you're done with that, stop consuming and pick up the camera and do something. I was stuck in the consumer train for too long. And my cliche motto for 2024 is create more, consume less. So those are the main things I'd say to figure out first and get that done first and get that right. Once you get that dialed in, everything becomes pretty easy.
Yeah, I think laying that groundwork is definitely like a huge thing. And I'm also a big systems guy. And I think that's where, at the core of it is sometimes where I struggle is I don't have things planned out, but I love scheduling things and, writing things down and all that. And it helps when I have it good, it's rolling and there's no issues. But when I don't, then I'm just,
you're
everything
overwhelmed.
gets delayed. I'll do it tomorrow.
It gets piled on top of you. You're overwhelmed.
Yeah. And then it's analysis paralysis. It's the same thing. You just think too much and you end up doing nothing at the end of it.
Yeah,
so
100%. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, man. So I guess last thing of the episode is where can the people find you? Where are we at on socials?
Everybody messes my name up wrong because they say Sims, but it's at Scott Simmons. I just shortened my last name. Funny thing of that is My dad always put Simmons, Simmz, on our license plates. So when I was a kid, like a 17, we had like a couple cars in the driveway that was, my mom's, his. I got lucky enough to have one. My sister had one, and they all said Simmons on it. So I rolled with that as like my last name. So it's Scott, Scott, Simmons, Simmnz, anywhere, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube.
Hell yeah, dude. I also shortened my name. Hemingway is way too long, so we go with Waze.
I like Waze a lot, dude. Yeah. It's a cool
Just,
little
it
way.
rolls off the tongue, man.
Yeah, Dan Waze.
So, hell yeah, man. Well, I will leave the link. Or also, where are the brands? Like, let's add the brands in here. Like, what are we working on? Give some shout outs. We'll throw everything in the link in the YouTube.
Sure.
Too.
So the clothing brand that my homie Jason Lucero started, it's called Uphill Battle. It's on Instagram. It's uphillbattle.co. That's also the website as well. And then Angel, my other partner in the protein cookie business, is called Chunky Fit, Chunky, like a fat kid. Chunky Fit Cookie, and that's on Instagram, and you can look that up on Google as well. It'll pop up. I'd plug Savannah, but I feel like there's probably not many fitness women listening to this.
Hey, you never know, man.
If you know me, you can find Savannah. It's not very hard.
Oh yeah. So, all right, man. Well, I appreciate the combo. This has probably been, one of my, if not my favorite episodes. It's just cool getting to chop it up. And I was glad we were able to make this work because honestly, the Zoom thing kind of freaked me out. I didn't know how we do everything, but it worked out and I loved it, man. This is a great conversation. I think a lot of creatives are going to be able to pull, a lot of things from this. So Appreciate you hopping on, man. And to a biggest year yet.
Of course, man. I appreciate you having me. I'm excited to see what we can do in the future.